Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your new week out there so far. We do got a few things to talk about in this morning's video, as once again, we're going to have a weekend upcoming full of severe weather chances. How bad is this going to be? We're not quite sure. I mean, it's Monday. We got multiple days to figure it out, but what we do know is the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted Saturday and Sunday and pretty large areas also for the risk of strong to severe thunderstorms. So we're going to talk about what we do know. Pretty much this entire work week will be focusing a lot on this risk for this weekend. So just a heads up on that. But we'll break down the storm that could potentially cause this huge area to run a risk of severe weather. And then we'll talk about the ingredients coming together for severe weather chances. After we get done discussing that, we will break down today into tonight's weather for you folks, like we always do towards the end of the video. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. I am multiple days behind on comments. I don't even think I was able to answer Friday morning's comments, so I'll get caught up with everything over the weekend for you folks and answer any questions, or just make sure I acknowledge everything like I always try to do. So if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is for Saturday. All right, there's Saturday and Sunday. So I mean, it's Monday. Like I said, multiple days out ahead of this system. They're already highlighting two pretty large areas, and Sunday is much larger than Saturday. I mean, Saturday itself, as you can see on the screen, is pretty large. So this entire yellow area that you see means there's a 15% risk of any severe weather. All hazards are possible. We're not even close to day 2, which is the day before, where they kind of section each category out, whether it's a tornado risk, higher tornado risk, damaging winds, or large hail. So right now we just know in this entire yellow area is a 15% risk of any severe weather. This does include Kansas City. I mean, it includes Topeka, down here to Wichita, Joplin, Columbia, Missouri, St. Louis, a section of Illinois, very small section of southern Iowa, all the way down here to northern Arkansas, down the Little Rock, Fayetteville, Jonesboro, Pine Bluff, Springfield, all the way down to Tulsa, Oklahoma City, down to Fort Smith, and all the way down to almost Texarkana. So pretty large area, 15% risk of severe weather. We got to figure out all those details in the coming days. Now, check it out for Sunday. For Sunday, from Chicago all the way to the Gulf coastline, there is a 15% risk of any severe weather. I mean, this is one of the largest slight risk I've ever seen. I don't know if it's the largest ever, not quite sure. I don't keep up with that kind of stuff as far as historical outlooks or anything like that. But this is pretty large. I mean, it includes, let's start from north and go south. Chicago, I mean, includes South Bend, Toledo, Columbus, Cleveland. You pretty much include, well, it looks like it stops just shy of Cleveland, but I mean, you could get severe weather. Cincinnati, Indianapolis, St. Louis included in this one also, Louisville, Evansville, Lexington, down here to Bowling Green. I mean, pretty much all of eastern Kentucky too, and western Kentucky, almost the entire state of Tennessee, including Knoxville, Chattanooga, Nashville, Jackson, Memphis, all the way down to Atlanta, to Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Huntsville, Florence, Memphis, Jackson, Mississippi, Montgomery, all the way down to Mobile, the Gulf coastline, Gulfport, Biloxi, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, includes all of the central and northern section of Louisiana, all the way to eastern areas of Texas, the entire state of Arkansas, even a small section of eastern Oklahoma, a very small section of southeastern Kansas. So this is a large area, guys. So they're already sniffing this one out, meaning that, I mean, they can already see a risk. And they did very well with the risk of severe weather yesterday as far as the outlook, from calling it out from very far out. And, I mean, around Rolling Fork, which we know about 2 years ago, I believe to this day or to yesterday, they had that, catastrophic tornado that killed like 17 people. They had on some of their tower cams another tornado. I'm not sure if it actually touched down, but man, talk about insult to misery. But it didn't look like anything too bad. But of course, that community is still recovering for sure. But anyways, a large area for Sunday. Now, I will tell you, for day 5, which is for Friday, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some severe weather in the Midwest up here. But no outlook issued And there could be some severe weather chances out ahead of some of these days too. So just a heads up on that. Let's talk about what's driving this. We're going to start this off. Let's back it up actually. Let's look at Friday afternoon. There is a low pressure here, and there could be multiple ones, like one initial one right here. So I'm going to draw on this a little bit. This low right here could create some severe weather kind of right in here. Very well could. And I'll talk about that more when we start breaking down the thermodynamics ingredients for severe weather, stuff like that. So that's kind of your initial low. Whatever that does, we'll see. But then here comes what I think is probably going to be a main low pressure. 994 low right here, kind of ejecting off the eastern plains and the Rockies of Colorado. And you can see some storms bubbling up here. This is late Friday evening in Iowa and just sections of the Midwest. Very well could be some storms. And there could already be a lot of storm activity down here in the western deep south, like Louisiana, areas of Arkansas, Texas. But kind of main low, not a super strong low. I mean, 999 millibar low, but I mean, it could be stronger, could be weaker. But it begins to very slowly. And the reason it's so slow is because it's not very strong. It's kind of embedded in a ridge. It's more so like just a short wave, just a little small piece of energy kind of ejecting across the country. But there's already a very moist air mass right here. So we're starting to get into, say, Saturday afternoon. It shows a lot of thunderstorm activity down here in the mid-Mississippi Valley, down to the Mississippi Delta, down to the Gulf coastline. Shows a lot of convection up here, but this could be north of the low, which means it's in a more stable environment. But anyways, I mean, this is just a run of the Euro. We're not even close to any kind of short-range model guidance. But it mainly just shows what's going on here, which is a low going across this general area right in here. Air mass building that supports severe weather, low pressure right here. And as we know, typically, south, southeast, even east of a low pressure, you have a risk of, severe weather out ahead of it, or below it. So this is getting into Sunday morning. Here comes that low, and then you see like midday Sunday, a lot of splotches of, yellow, orange, red, heck, even pink shows up, which tells us widespread thunderstorms. And it's right over that huge slight risk area that you see right here. Okay, lows up here, makes sense. You see a lot of activity in this area. So, and then you see, a lot of thunderstorm activity across the deep south here. And then this could eventually Sunday night into next Monday morning make its way into the eastern U.S. We just got to see what this system is still working with at this point. But that's the system itself. If we look at the ingredients here, and we're going to start this off Friday midday, which there's no outlook issued for Friday, but I do want to note some surface dew points already rising into the 50s, all the way into the Midwest up here. And I know you're thinking, if you're somewhat knowledgeable on the ingredients of severe weather, dew points in the 50s typically don't get the job done. But the further north you are, the higher you are up as far as feet elevation, the less that you need those dew points to be very high. Okay, we'll leave it at that. So dew points in the 50s, even some pockets of close to 60 will get the job done up here. But if you look down here, kind of in the south, you see kind of a pool of dew points in the 60s beginning to rise here in Texas, areas of Louisiana. But you start to get into like Friday evening. You see this area right here? You want to watch this area right in here. Okay, could get some strong to severe thunderstorms Friday evening. Very possible. A little area right here where dews are like upper 50s, low 60s. That could get some severe weather going. And with a low pressure really close by, there certainly will be a pocket of favorable wind flow aloft to get that lift going for those thunderstorms. Now, we continue to make our way. If we can get this going here. Come on, you're ready to go. We get into late Friday night. We get into Saturday morning. And we start to get into Saturday midday. We get this pocket of 60-plus dew points rising all the way up into eastern Oklahoma, the Arklatex, Arkansas, starting to get up the Mississippi River, the Delta region. And by the time you start to get into Saturday evening, you get dew points that are rising to the 60s, almost all the way up to the Missouri-Arkansas line. And I would argue that it'll probably be a little bit further north, but this is the area that we got highlighted for severe weather, kind of right into this region. And this surface moisture could be further up like that, okay? But this is thermodynamics. These storms need that moisture in the air mass to really get going. They don't want anything to do with any kind of dry air, just like the tropics. These hurricanes, these tropical systems do not like dry air. They like that moist air. So as we are starting to get into Sunday morning, and then we get into, let's say this is Sunday afternoon, we got this huge area that has more moist air all the way up to like Lake Erie. So we got this huge moist sector rising across this entire 15% risk area that we just discussed. But your deepest moisture certainly is further south. I mean, that's always going to be the case. The further south you get, the better moisture there is. So dew points into the 60s down here. But this is the Euro ensemble. So this blends all model guidance together. So there could be a couple runs in here that show a lot more dry air, and there could be a couple runs in here that has dew points in the 60s all the way up to Cleveland. So just keep that in mind. This blends model guidance together, so this is a great thing to look at this range. But one thing to focus in on is this green area. This is more moist air in this region for sure. So I definitely got a moist air mass in place, and if we keep this going all the way into Sunday evening, that deep moisture really hangs out further to the south, but we get a cold front that sort of flattens everything out. And then we're waking up next Monday morning, a week from today, with most of your moisture down closer to the southern states and really the Gulf coastline. So one thing you can look at here, and we won't spend a whole lot of time on this because I like to look at Cape levels when we get a little bit closer, but there's Friday afternoon. Here's that pocket of Cape storm fuel. I mean, Cape values, mixed layer Cape, over 2,000 joules per kilogram on this particular operational run of the Euro. So that's why I do think we have a risk of thunderstorms, strong to severe thunderstorms, even Friday across the Midwest, as we have better lapse rates, which creates higher Cape levels, which normally means you have more colder air aloft nearby. But then you start to get into that Saturday time frame, and here's that, it almost looks like a dry line setup, meaning we have a separation between dry desert air, stable environment, and moist, more unstable air east of the dry line. So we have this area that kind of builds into this region where you got Cape values over 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Saturday afternoon does not have a lot of fuel in Missouri and Arkansas where you do have that slight risk. So it's just stuff to watch. And just remember, these outlooks are going to change, are going to tweak around. And then we start to get into Sunday morning. We got a lot of fuel down here. I mean, well over 2,500 joules per kilogram in spots. Heck, almost closer to 3,000 joules per kilogram in Cape. Just think of this as a lot of storm fuel already just sitting here ready to be tapped into in like central to eastern Texas, Arkansas, southeast Oklahoma, and Louisiana. And then as we are starting to get into, Sunday evening, you have this storm fuel that rises all the way up into Indiana, Ohio. And I know you're thinking 500 joules, 600, 700 joules per kilogram don't seem like a whole lot. But if you got enough of favorable wind pattern in the atmosphere, that is enough. Enough wind shear over this pockets of 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram. That'll get the job done. You don't need rocket fuel like 4,000 joules per kilogram of Cape to get this going. In fact, sometimes when you get so much fuel in the atmosphere, a lot of times there's like an area of warm air aloft called a cap. It's a capping mechanism. It doesn't allow for these updrafts to really rise. So you can have all this energy just kind of sitting pretty in the lower areas of the atmosphere, but and even in the upper levels of the atmosphere, but there's like a capping mechanism in between, so they can't tap into one another. So you get these updrafts that build and build and then get flattened out. And until they explode through that warm air aloft, I mean, they won't be able to get going. So just a little nerding out there for you. But talking about that wind flow, we always look at the 500 millibar, a mean flow out here at this point, because we are still multiple days out. And, this is Friday midday. Does show a little flow up here where I will be watching for a little bit of severe weather. So 20, 30, 40 knots of mid-level flow over this area, mixed, with the better lapse rates, a little bit of moisture in the atmosphere, certainly high enough Cape levels to fuel these storms. I'll be watching for some severe weather for Friday, even though there's no outlook issued. And then we start to get some flow that starts to come out the southwest. So we start to get to Saturday, and then we get that 30, 40 knots mid-level, upper-level flow right over this region, overriding that somewhat moist air mass that I just showed you guys in this region. And that's why for Saturday, just enough flow in this area to get those storms going. And then we start to get into Sunday, and then I think Sunday could be the bigger day. In my opinion, you just got better flow aloft, stronger flow aloft, over 40, maybe 50 knots. And this is the smoothed out Euro ensemble, so it should be higher than this, I would say, as we get closer, but maybe not. And we even got enough flow down here, just basically westernly to southwesternly flow right over this region, overriding a pretty moist air mass into this area right into here. So I don't know if you remember, yesterday morning, if you tuned in, I think I circled this area right in here that I liked for severe weather for Sunday. You guys, they've highlighted a huge area that goes all the way like this. It doesn't go this far east, but you get what I'm saying. Pretty large area, but enough flow. It makes sense. The pattern supports severe weather for sure. So anyways, just kind of showing you the signal for a strong, well, not for a strong, I would say a strong signal for some sort of lower pressure over the middle of the country. And we start this off Friday morning. The blue is lower pressure, and this is the Euro ensemble, so it makes sense. We're probably going to have some initial low up here. Not the color I wanted. Right here. And then here comes our next low right there. All right, so we keep this going. That low further to the west becomes the main low most likely, but we could have multiple just pieces of energy throughout the weekend kind of riding through here as the avenue sets up. But the blue's lower pressure. Anytime you have lower pressure over the middle of the country like this, you're probably going to run severe weather this time of the year with a moist air mass kind of sitting right here. Flow will move in response to that low to the north over that area, and we're probably going to run the risk of severe weather. So this will be a heavy topic over the next few days, so go on and get ready for that. We just want to make sure people are prepared for the severe weather to come for this weekend. So as far as today's weather, this is what's going on right now. It's definitely a snowy scene up here for the UP and Michigan and areas of the Great Lakes region. We got this area of snow moving into New England, and we got a huge area of rain extending all the way down to the deep south. This is much needed rain, especially for the Appalachian Mountains. We need all the rain we can get. Now, I do want to watch, let's see if we can zoom into this. I'm just getting used to this new update from WeatherTap here. But I want to watch this line of storms that's starting to get going as it continues to move east. See this area of storms right here? I want to watch this entire area right in here throughout the next several hours all the way into the evening. This line of storms could make its way and affect everybody along the Gulf coastline. I'll talk more on that here in a second, but definitely want to watch that. But as far as up here, we got some energy over the middle of the country, kind of cruising down from northwest to the southeast. That's what the flow right now is. The pattern supports as far as the flow of any kind of weather. But anyways, as far as watches, warnings, and advisories, we continue to have some high wind, high wind warnings across the northern Rockies, high plains for the flow that is riding over this area. Winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings continue up here for the Great Lakes region. Then we do have some scattered and smothered winter weather advisories, Waffle House reference up here in the northeast. But most of the country's pretty quiet. I mean, there's special weather statements out there, I'm sure, but they're not shown on this map. But the risk of severe weather, and listen, the Storm Prediction Center highlights what I'm talking about. We got this area of storms right here that's going to go across this entire marginal risk area today. So we call it a mesoscale convective system. This will sweep across the entire Gulf coastline. So everybody in that dark green, heads up, and don't let this line of storms catch you by surprise. You'll more than likely see it coming. There is a tornado risk. There's a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles of any given location in this dark green area. The wind risk, you got that 5% risk, and the hail threats, you got a 5% risk of that too. But I wouldn't be surprised if they bumped us up to a slight risk for a very small area down here. But be aware of that. And then the excessive rainfall outlook. No area except areas of the Pacific Northwest has this pretty quiet day in that category of weather. The Southeast, leftover energy will continue to cruise over Georgia, the Carolinas, up through Virginia throughout the day. Maybe we'll wash some of this pollen off for a time period, then it'll all get all over your cars and stuff all over again. It is crazy right now here in central South Carolina, but that'll move through. Could have additional showers and storms that develop behind the main energy by this afternoon, so don't be surprised if we get some pop-up thunderstorms through Georgia, the Carolinas. I don't think they'll do much, but I do want to talk about, and then you get into this evening, there's that round of thunderstorms for southeast Georgia, maybe some more rain for the low country of South Carolina later on tonight. But let's talk about the Gulf really quick. Gulf coastline, HRRR model doing pretty well verifying what's going on now. But you can see as this kind of bowing out segment right here kind of sweeps across the Gulf coastline. I mean, I would say this will hit New Orleans, Baton Rouge, probably around 9, 10, 11 o'clock this morning. Biloxi, Gulfport, maybe closer to lunchtime. Mobile, maybe lunchtime to early afternoon. Then it'll sweep across the entire panhandle this entire afternoon. Some damaging winds are possible, a quick spin up. And this will continue. As long as this entire little area remains cleared out throughout the afternoon hours, it should be tapping into some pretty unstable air throughout this region. So we'll be able to fuel this area of storms throughout the rest of the afternoon. So just be aware of that. Up here in the northeast, a little bit more wintry. We're getting some snow moving in now, but a low will try to develop here and really amplify the moisture back in the cold air. So we'll get a period of snow in areas of Vermont, New Hampshire, especially New Hampshire, and especially Maine this afternoon. A lot of snow falling in just about, I would say, 90% of the state of Maine. It could be heavy, wet snow, too. By the time we get into this evening, into the overnight hours, just some lingering snow showers. By the time I'm waking up tomorrow morning, just a cold morning, and the snow is done. But it's going to be pretty heavy. I mean, this is the snowfall forecast that was updated around 4 o'clock this morning. I mean, a good 4 to 6 inch snowfall event. Some areas maybe less than northern and northwest Maine, but it's a pretty decent late season event up here, but nothing uncommon at all. But this is how much snow you're expecting in this area of Maine. And then the rest of Maine, down here in like the southern and western areas and southwestern areas of Maine, this is what you're expecting. Augusta 3 to 4, Freiburg 4 to 6, Plymouth 3 to 4, even Concord and Manchester, maybe 1 to 2 inches of quick wet snow. This will probably melt pretty quick. But down here in the southern New England, a little bit of snow in the Berkshires. So we'll see what happens with that, but not expecting much at all. And then the rest of Vermont and northern sections, kind of upstate New York, this is what you're expecting. This will mainly be elevation driven, so I wouldn't expect a whole lot in the valleys, but the Adirondacks could get maybe, depending on your elevation, several inches of snow. So the south central U.S., a pretty quiet day of weather. This energy will head on out. We could get some thunderstorms deep down South Texas that could come out of Mexico, but the latest HRRR model run shows them weakening before they do so, but a pretty quiet day of weather down here. The north central U.S. will continue to get this spinning upper low that will continue just to bring a wintry type day. You know, the UP of Michigan will continue to deal with on and off snow. Lower Michigan, same thing, especially northern lower Michigan. This will continue throughout the overnight hours and, heck, probably all the way into tomorrow morning. And it could be a similar setup tomorrow, but probably not as aggressive, I would say. But snowfall expected between now and the next 48 hours. Maybe another several inches of snow in Marquette. But the next, I would say, 24 hours or so will probably favor more so up against the shoreline and just off the shoreline of Lake Superior. But several more inches of snow on the way for areas of the UP. And then lower Michigan could get several inches of snow up here. And northern lower Michigan, even pockets. If you live in these areas in like the purple, that's where over 6 inches of snow is forecast. So you're not done with this winter storm yet. The western U.S., same kind of pattern, just rounds of precip. Moisture just kind of stay confined to the northern Rockies and the Pacific Northwest. And then the flow begins to shift as we get into tomorrow. But nothing significant out west. Temperatures could get an area of 60 to get all the way up to the D.C. Baltimore area. Boston will remain chilly, and once you get up here into northern sections of the Northeast, even colder. The Southeast, pretty decent day, 60s, 70s. Florida will be pretty warm. The Great Lakes region, cold. And then out west, just about everybody's pretty warm with a ridge just spiking over the entire western U.S. In fact, we're going to get some widespread 90s across the Southwest. A nice day in California if you like warm weather. But it's pretty warm in the south central U.S. and the western U.S. with a ridge spiking over these areas. I don't have a Bible devotion today, but I promise you guys, I'm going to start trying to do 3 a week. It's time to bump it up from 2 to 3. Just want to get into a routine. And I'm going to try to get set days to do this too. I know a lot of people say they love them, and I love doing them. They really are a good kickstart to my day. So we'll definitely have one for you tomorrow morning. So God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day. Hope you have a wonderful start to your week, and we'll talk to you again soon.